Hello, everyone, and happy Sunday to you that are watching this show. This is not Andy Herman. Andy, you left your computer open again, and you let some of us play with it. So I apologize to everything that's happening. I'm your host today. You've probably seen me before if you've done these Pack-A-Day videos. I'm Jacob Westendorf. I'm joined by the other Jacob of our crew. That's Jacob Morley. You can find us normally on Wednesdays at the Gold Zone on Game On Wisconsin. But today we're doing the Pack-A-Day video, and we are talking running backs. A position the Packers need, not maybe the right way to put that, but they could use a guy. And they might even pick two if they really like two. One early and one in like the 7th round. We'll see. A lot of things that can happen between now and then. Before I get too deep into this, I do want to tell you guys, if you want to find takes about the NFL draft, on the bottom line here, you could see, buy the Green Bay Draft Guide for $9.99. Hit that website. 225 profiles, and everything is specific to your Green Bay Packers. You will not find a draft guide as catered to the Packers as you will this one. We have actual thresholds in there. We have conversations about what the Packers typically target in those positions. We have features about the team. Ross Uglum, Jacob Morley, and myself all wrote something specific as far as our opinions on the team. Morley's is really good if you're into data nerd stuff. Ross and mine a little more conjecture type things, but you'll really enjoy that as well. But I'm joined by Jacob Morley, as I usually am when it comes to anything that I end up doing. Mr. Morley, how are we feeling?
I'm feeling good, man. I am ready for the draft, though. I mean, it is that part of the season and that part of the year where it's kind of silly season, and it's hard to believe what you hear or what you think. It's also overthink it season, where you've been doing this stuff and you've been getting so familiar with these prospects and doing all the work and the data and you're reading and the numbers and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, man, rewind to 2 months ago about who you like the most. And that's probably still who you should like the most. And I think to a degree, that's how teams think as well. And that's how their process works as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're just kind of catching up to what those things are, but we'll see. It's only 2 weeks away. Thankfully, we are right there, guys. We are right there. It is actually less than 2 weeks away, honestly, at this point. So we've got a lot to discuss today. So let's just get right to it, Morley. We're talking running backs. It's a position, like we said, the Packers have Aaron Jones. God bless Aaron Jones. I would give my entire life, for my kingdom, for Aaron Jones. Like, just quintessential Green Bay Packer. And I know this is it's a business, and the way things work don't necessarily line up with the way Jones does things, but I'm going to sound super old when I say this, but I met Aaron Jones through this type of platform once when we were doing the Jamal Williams show on Game On Wisconsin. And I will never forget, every question was yes, sir, no, sir. And I'm just like, dude, I'm a nobody compared to you. But incredibly respectful, definitely a military brat. You can tell that. But his conversation about a pay cut, said he didn't want to be greedy, wants to be in Green Bay, wants to help the team that he can. And I don't want to make this about the quarterback. However, after all the stuff about what hasn't been done for me and what they did to me and didn't do for me, and I understand Rodgers has some legitimate gripes. I'm not trying to say that he doesn't, but it is a little refreshing just to hear the unselfish nature of Aaron Jones. And I very much appreciate him, and I'll appreciate him until his time in Green Bay is over. And that's not going to be for a while yet.
Well, and Aaron is someone that he doesn't operate how you would tell an athlete you have to. I think you said it today. Like, I would never advocate for an athlete to take less money, but the fact that he did is really neat, and it matters to him. That kind of stuff matters to him, how he's perceived amongst Packers fans. And I don't think any athlete has to be a role model. Like, I don't think you necessarily have to be that, but it matters to Aaron. It matters to him that, like, kids look at him and they'd be like, man, he's who I want to be. And, as someone that works with young athletes, it's pretty cool to see a guy like that. And he's so good that I think we take him for granted sometimes too. And you just got to enjoy what we get out of that guy, because, man alive, he is a rare player, but even more of a rare human being in today's day and age. So tip of the cap to Aaron Jones for sure.
And I would like to use this platform. I've done this before, but I need to apologize first and foremost to Katie Sunderman because she was the one who would come at me the most when I would have takes like this. But I do apologize for saying the Packers should let Aaron Jones walk after the 2020 season. Number one, for reasons we just mentioned. Number two, and probably more importantly, I was wrong. Like, can you imagine the state of the Packers? And granted, they would have maybe done some different things roster-wise, but the state of the Packers running back room without him would be horrendous. Morley, I know you have a higher opinion of the practice squad guys than maybe I do. I think both of those guys are like fine running back threes or guys that can call up on practice squads, but that's what they are.
That's what they are. Yep.
Yeah. And that's all I ever want them to be, which is why I think the Packers could stand to take a guy in this year's class. And maybe,
but let me stop you right there though, Jacob, because I think we can learn something from what they did with running back 3 this year. Tyler Goodson was everybody's darling all preseason long, and big old Patrick Taylor was just kind of the ho-hum, solid in all phases of the game, good in pass
especially
pro.
in pass pro. That's the big one.
Who got the roster looks, right? I mean, so I think we go through all this stuff and we'll look at some guys in this year's draft class, but some of that stuff is important to keep in mind. Like, they do care about, keeping the quarterback upright. And maybe some of that changes with the new quarterback, with how they're going to run the offense. Maybe not. I don't know. I mean, they're always going to care about keeping whoever's playing quarterback upright, of course. But maybe there is a little bit more emphasis on getting 3 guys involved this year because they do want to lean more into the running game with a young quarterback. And I think that's what's interesting with this year's draft class. When you say, like, do they need somebody? No, not really. Like AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones are one of the best, if not the best, 1-2 punch in the NFL. Those 2 guys are healthy, you're golden. But what happens if one gets dinged up? It's the NFL. These things happen.
They will.
They will. It's
yes.
Yep.
AJ Dillon is a violent runner. His running style lends to more injuries. And Aaron Jones, for as many nice things as we have said about him, he does have a tendency to get to fight through things, as Matt LaFleur might put them. As far as 2023 goes, this season right now specifically, is it a need? No. The Packers have their 2 guys, and that's who's going to get the majority of the carries. However, in 2024, AJ Dillon's contract is expiring this offseason, after this season, I do believe. And then Aaron Jones is on a contract that it'll be, extension cut type time for him. So realistically, both of those guys could be gone. And this is the exact scenario. Well, not the exact, but pretty similar scenario they found themselves in when they took AJ Dillon. Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones were under contract, but they took AJ knowing they were only going to keep one of those guys maximum. So now that they have that, I do think the earliest that Green Bay would take a running back is with their original 2nd round pick. And I'm not saying that that's like my prediction or anything like that, but I do think it's possible that they would do it there, in the range of guys like Jahmyr Gibbs or Bijan Robinson, if he were to fall to that spot. A couple different guys that could, Devin Achane. I mean, Zach Charbonnet, I think, is a guy that they're going to really like, and we'll talk about him. And actually, I'll just, Morley, in terms of running back fits, I don't think there's a better one based on your board threshold little cement mixer type thing that you've got going there. And just as far as like, this is like pie in the sky fairy tale type stuff. But Zach Charbonnet to me is somebody that just looks like a Packer when he plays football. So I'm just going to let you talk about Mr. Charbo.
Yeah. And this is someone that Ross and I talked about last week when we were talking about, just fits in Green Bay. And you got the same reaction out of Uglum when I brought up Charbonnet as a type of guy that just is very much a Packer. You watch him, the burst is evident. You see him get the ball. He sees the field really well. He is very much like an outside zone type guy where he's going to put his foot in the ground and go. He actually kind of reminds me a little bit of Ryan Grant, Packers, old Packers running back from the Super Bowl days, where he is just very much a north and south type guy, does everything really well and then tested really well. And you see that athleticism show up on the field too. And he's someone that I think could be a starter and should be a starter in this league. He is very much the type of guy that's like, hey, you don't take a Bijan Robinson early because you take a Charbonnet on day 2 and you look at their production in 3 years and then you say, oh, they're not that different. And, you know, that's just the nature of the beast. I think Bijan is a really special player, but, you know, it would not be uncommon for someone to pass him in later rounds. Like you look at Aaron Jones, someone did a 2017 draft thing. I think it was PFF today, where they looked at guys that have graded out the best throughout the course of their career since 2017, that draft class. Aaron Jones was high up on that list. I don't know what the other running backs were in that year's draft class. I know like Alvin Kamara was one of them, but he wasn't a first-round pick either. Right? So was it? Yes. And Dalvin Cook is a good player, but like you put Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, and Aaron Jones in a bottle, and one of them pops out, and you're happy with the running back you got. Yep. And that's just kind of how it goes. So Charbonnet is a guy that I think would be an awesome fit in Green Bay. I think you'd probably have to take him at 45, but you never know. I'm not he won't be there type guy. He could very much be there in round 3. And if you got Charbonnet in round 3, I think that would break the curse, baby. I think that would be the one that would get it done, and maybe break the curse of if there is a curse on the Jonathan Franklin UCLA running back that the Packers also drafted in the 3rd round that probably would have went on to be a star for this team. I loved him coming out of college.
Yeah,
so you
always have that Cincinnati game.
Yep. Him and Eddie in that same class. Yeah, I remember the shoulder pad flopped out for half the game, and he was great. But in any case, Charbonnet would be my pick as far as like where need, athletic thresholds, and availability all come together and meet. Charbonnet is the guy that would make the most sense for me.
Yeah, and I completely understand that thought process. Like to me, here's the first question. I guess I shouldn't have just glossed over it because I did ask this question. When is the earliest that you would take, if you're Brian Gutekunst and the Green Bay Packers, when's the earliest you would take Bijan Robinson?
What if they take him at 15? Would it shock you? They do weird stuff in the first round. They do stuff every year that everyone goes, that everyone's just like, oh, what?
Only from the standpoint that and granted, last year is the year that we keep pointing to and saying like, man, that year really threw everything into a blender as far as everything we thought we knew about what the Packers will and won't do. It would still surprise me from a positional value standpoint. And I think we do talk too much about value and things of that nature. Most of the time, I said this to Owen Reese on Tuesday's show. I was like, to me, the word value is just a kind of a made up term that we throw around where it's like a way to justify the guy that we picked, our favorite team picked, and a way to like kind of make fun of the guy our rivals teams pick. Like, it's just like, oh, you didn't get good value there. You took a safety or whatever. And then you find out like, well, he's actually really good. So but that being said,
here. Let's say they take him at 15. We're all freaking out. Everyone's upset. And then they trade AJ Dillon. What kind of value does AJ Dillon even have?
I have no idea. It's hard to say because
me either.
It's hard to say simply because for a lot of reasons. Number one, he is a running back, and that is a position that has been devalued in the NFL. Number two, I mean, Elijah Moore just got traded for a 2nd-round pick, and he's done virtually nothing in the NFL. And you see guys like proven good players get traded for day 3 picks all the time. So it's hard to say. To answer your question, it would surprise me if they took him at 15. If like all the pass rushers and Smith and Jigba and say they trade back and one of the tight ends goes before 15, they trade back and somebody snipes the second one, whether that's Kincaid or Mayer. Like if those guys are gone and they took Bijan after a trade back, yeah, the group of people that have screamed in your face that you can just take a running back in the 6th round and have it work out, they'll be upset, but I don't really care about their opinions most of the time.
Or another scenario would be, let's say, we've kind of stopped talking about pick 13 for this team for reasons, and let's say they get pick 13, and let's say they take whoever player that everyone loves, Paris Johnson, everyone's thrilled. Jackson Smith-Njigba's off the board or whatever, and they take Bijan at 15.
I don't think I firmly believe that teams, when they have 2 first-round picks, and I'm not necessarily saying this is a good thing, but I do think that teams use one of those picks as like a luxury. Like, hey, we wouldn't normally do this if we only had one. Like, I always point to the Travis Etienne pick in Jacksonville. I don't think they would have taken him if they had that. Now, that being said, when it comes to Bijan specifically, and I don't think this will happen, but if he is available when they're on the clock in the 2nd round, I think they should run the card up.
They would.
And they should. And again, I don't think this is going to happen. I'm not saying that it will. But if he's available, say they get, whether they get 42 or 43 from the Jets or both, if they don't get either one of them and he's available at 45, like if you can add a top 10 player in the entire class in the 2nd round, you do it. Like, I'm sorry, you just do. And again, people will complain about it, saying they got bigger needs, whatever. At that point, I don't really care. Because I've said this before, my take on the Packers and their draft strategy for this season specifically, and maybe moving forward, is it's not like the last 3 years with Gutekunst and LaFleur, where it's like, oh, we circle 1 or 2 positions and shore those up and they're good and they could play in the Super Bowl. It's not like that anymore. It sounds boring and cliche, but take the best player available. And at 45, 42, something like that, that might mean Bijan Robinson. And again, in that case, run the card up. But the point again, probably not going to happen. I would take Jahmyr Gibbs at 45 as well. I think he's somebody that is like a plug and play Aaron Jones replacement if he's not going to be around in 2024 type of thing. I actually think
and Gibbs too is someone that would maybe be a better running back 3, because I mean, he had like 100+ catches in his college career. He can take reps in the slot. He can do the jet stuff. And I think they brought in, who's the kid they brought in?
Roshan Miller, or kid from Eastern Carolina.
Not Kendra Miller. Keaton Mitchell.
Keaton Mitchell. I'm sorry. Yes.
Mitchell. Yeah. So who is very much in that mold, and that might tell you like, hey, we're looking for a guy that a little bit of a different flavor as our 3rd running back. Tyler Irvin. It's so funny how we talk about Tyler Irvin as a guy that was here for like a cup of coffee. But
I will say this too, though. I do think it's possible that Green Bay rosters 4 running backs like they did after they drafted A.J. Dillon, and Irvin was one of them. Like, if they were to draft Keaton Mitchell, I don't think that stops them potentially. Or like if they were to draft somebody earlier and then draft Keaton Mitchell on like day 3, that wouldn't surprise me at all, because then they just kind of do the thing where they plug them in and say, this is your specific role. You're some insurance on kickoff and punt returns if you want to be that. And you're our jet motion guy. Because right now, Green Bay doesn't really have one of those. Christian Watson did some stuff with it last year, and it's nice, but you don't really want him. I mean, that's a nice like wrinkle, but he's their best receiver. You want him doing that.
That guy's a decoy 90% of the time.
Honestly, their best jet motion guy that I want doing things as things stand right now here is Keyshawn Dixon. And we got a long ways to go before that happens, but that could be a lot of fun. So we talked about Charbonnet. We've talked about Gibbs. We've talked about, obviously, Bijan Robinson as far as that goes. One guy they've had Evan Hall on a top 30 visit as well from Northwestern. And I do think the Packers are looking for some passing game players. I think that the use of the running backs in the passing game is going to be a little more pronounced, especially with Jordan Love being the starter, Aaron Rodgers being dealt at some point or another, and not being the quarterback for the team any longer. But that's one guy that they've brought in. I think as a whole, Green Bay could very much stand to add one guy for sure. I am almost certain they're going to draft one guy. But I do think 2 is possible. And again, one of them or the other one would be in the ilk of that Tyler Irvin type of role. So who's somebody, Morley, that you like on day 3 that Green Bay could grab, whether it be in that role that we were just talking about or an actual, like, hey, you're going to line up behind the quarterback, next to the quarterback in the shotgun, and you're going to be just a traditional, this is our A.J. Dillon / Aaron Jones replacement for 2024.
Yeah, like a guy that can come in and like be a legit starter for a team someday is, I think it's the other Texas kid, the Roshan Johnson. He's really good in his own right. He's a bigger guy, 225. big time athlete, big time broad jump. I think the Packers would really like him. He might not be there on day 3. He might go on day 2. So 2 more like day 3 types. Like I'll give you 2 names that you probably have heard. But Deuce Vaughn out of K-State is someone that
he's going to be a Dallas Cowboy.
Probably his dad's a scout there. Like would not shock me at all. But he's someone that I think can do a lot of that jet stuff. He's pretty decent in the passing game. I don't think he's Darren Sproles good in the passing game, but he's good. And I think you can actually hand the ball off to him and give him 5, 6, 7, 8 carries a game if you want to do that. But someone else that I was disappointed with how they tested because, man, oh man, their tape is fun. Like this guy's tape is as fun as anyone in this draft class, and that's Devin Achane out of Texas A&M. Kid can fly. I mean, you talk about someone in the slot going into, motioning and having to respect it. Achane is that guy. He is that dude. He is, he's like a 190 type kid. I don't think he's ever like a feature back in the NFL, but for what Green Bay does right now, to pair him with someone like Christian Watson, who has, see you later type speed, the prospect of that, it's really fun to me. And Achane is a guy that I don't know where he's going to go in the draft. I think earlier on in the prospect, like we have him as a top 100 guy. He came out, ran a really fast 40, but did not work out that well in other areas. And he's not like a big time RAS type, but I don't care. Yeah, I see the speed and I see it on tape. I see the phone booth ability where you cannot get a hit on this guy. You cannot hit him cleanly. So those are 2 guys or 3 guys really that I would keep my eye on. Roschon is someone that's a high fit for the Packers. That could be a bell cow in this league. And then Deuce and Achane are 2 guys that I would just love to see in that RB3, or just maybe not even RB3, but just like the weapon type role, the weapon role.
Yeah, my guy Chase Brown, out of the Brown brothers, I like him significantly more than his brother. And that sounds like a slight to Sydney, and I don't mean for it to be that way. But Chase Brown, I think, in the Big Ten this year, I saw one running back give the University of Michigan problems, and it was Brown. He's very fast, and I do think that is something that the Packers could use is an injection of speed and kind of get some of those explosive type runs. And just honestly, like I think he can make plays out of the backfield. He didn't catch a ton of passes when he was at Illinois, but yeah, 27 catches last year. I was just trying to find the exact number on that, but 27 catches, but he's 4.42 speed. Green Bay just on offense doesn't have, and they haven't had a lot of those guys over the last 5 years or so. It seems like they've gone with the solid, if not unspectacular, speed type player. And I do think Green Bay could use a few players like that in their offense, and Brown would certainly be one of those. I think that there's opportunities for that. I think he's a round 3, round 4 type of pick, and it's something that you'd be really happy about a few years from now. Sean Tucker, the comp we had for him coming out was J.K. Dobbins, and Dobbins was one of my favorite players in that draft class. Another guy who open field speed, and it's, explosive runner. You go through some of that stuff. The other guy that I want to get to, he was like a favorite early in the process. I think he was a Senior Bowl. I might be mixing up all-star games at this point, but it's Tajai Spears. He was like the guy early on. And again, this guy catch the ball. Can you turn, Green Bay doesn't have any, definitely not enough, but any guys like this where can they turn 5 into 25? Can they turn 7 into 47? Stuff like that. They don't have enough guys that can make plays like that. I think Spears.
Well, Aaron Jones is the comp that everyone throws at him, because you look at the way he plays, and he's pretty much a Packer type all day too. He's like a little bit below their weight threshold, but I don't think enough that they'd care. Give him a cheeseburger.
And I think Tajai is one of those guys too that he's a more natural. I always use the phrase natural passing game player when it comes to Aaron Jones. And the reason I say Jones isn't natural is because I know he had that one great game that you talk about all the time, Morley, with Kansas City, but like otherwise you can see him like when he's catching the ball. Sometimes it feels like he's kind of fighting the ball, or like the the catch and run in the playoffs against San Francisco a couple years ago. Like he had to turn and make sure he caught it. Rodgers couldn't float it over his shoulder and let him over the shoulder catch it, which is a tough catch for a lot of people to make. But like he couldn't do that, and maybe that cost him a bit of an angle when it came to getting in the end zone. So Green Bay wasn't able to score on that drive. We know what else happened from there. But Tajai Spears, I think, just a little bit more natural. And it took Jones a while. And to his credit, we were talking at the top of the show about getting guys on the field for pass protection. That's one of the big reasons he didn't play as much early in his career. Jamal Williams was more advanced in the passing game as a whole, and that included protection. That's a huge deal, regardless of who the quarterback is, but especially when you're going to be playing in a lot of shotgun stuff like Aaron Rodgers is going to have you doing. But those are a couple guys that I really like. Morley, real quick before we wrap here, what do you think the likelihood is that they take a running back in the first 5 rounds?
Ooh, first 5 rounds, 69%.
Nice. I'll go 75% because I'm not an immature child like you are, but that's okay. I just think that, again, the Packers plan ahead for everything. Now, I do think it'll be a little bit later. One reason I think it could be a little bit later is if you look at the Packers' needs for 2023 and like in the nearest future, the outlook at receiver, tight end, and defensive line is terrifying. Like, I mean, they have 3 defensive linemen on the roster currently that have taken NFL snaps. All of their receivers last year missed some semblance of time or are like late round lottery picks. They don't have any tight ends on the roster or down the line. But with the running back position, I just think that, we've seen them plan ahead before. It's a position Matt LaFleur very much values in his offense, and I think you're going to see more value in that, not just because I think they're going to run the ball more with Jordan Love or have a bigger commitment to the running game in 2023, but also because they need more guys to catch passes, and the Packers haven't had a lot of guys like that, and I feel like they could use, again, an injection of some stuff, and I think they've shown some interest in it. So I'm curious to see kind of how this offense kind of gets reshaped around Jordan Love, and I think one way to do that is with these running backs. But we're out of time. I want to thank you guys for checking in on this Sunday afternoon for your guys' show. Well, maybe it's morning, maybe it's afternoon, who knows? I don't know. For the show, but you can follow me. I'm on Twitter. You can find me at Jacob Westendorf. You can find him. He's at Jacob Morley. And on the bottom line here, again, grab yourself a copy of the Green Bay Draft Guide for $9.99. You cannot pre-order it any longer, but that doesn't mean you can't have it. You order it, comes right to your inbox. 225 profiles, 3 features, why guys fit, where guys fit. If you want to learn more about the Packers thresholds and all those fancy, funky words and acronyms that you hear thrown at you all the time and stuff that dates, frankly, all the way back to Ron Wolf. So if you want to learn about all that stuff, what do you call it, Morley? The answers to the test. If you want to see the answers to the test.
Yep. Hopefully.
Then you want to check those out. But we're out of time. We thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next time we have a chance. Enjoy your week, and we're one day closer to draft day.